Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Ys for Famicom, brought to us by Victor Interactive Software. Ys for the Famicom is a vastly different game than Ys that was released on many other consoles and computer systems. It was developed by Advanced Communications Company, the same company that also developed the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde game. I'm sure due to many of the limitations of the original Famicom, this version of Ys is potentially one of the worst versions of the game to exist. Before we dive into the game, I must admit that this playthrough will be a little bit disjointed. There are a few times where I have to backtrack for items because I ended up forgetting about them because of the order that things are done in this version, as well as, of course, there's a lot of grinding, and the mazes being completely different than other versions of the game, and due to this, I end up getting lost rather easily. I will do my best to fast forward through the grinding, the backtracking, and any time I end up getting stuck in a maze, while still doing my best to explain exactly where we're supposed to be going. So here we go with Ys for the Nintendo Famicom. When we start the game, there's a very basic title screen. When you press start here, you're going to jump right into the game. You'll have immediate control of Adol, our main hero, and we're going to be going around trying to get our equipment and our basic opening story before jumping into the actual world. Go down... Start off by heading to this shop and immediately buy the Sapphire Ring. It will cost you all your gold, but trust me, it'll be worth it. From there, you want to head over to the right side and enter the building just to that right. Once in here, go to the loaner and he'll mention the ring and actually buy it off of you for 1,500 gold. So you've already made 500 gold in profit, and this will definitely come in handy. Now head down to the main shops, the armor and weapon shop, and here we're going to buy the chainmail at first, and then we're going to go over to the other shop and buy our sword. We're not going to buy a shield right away, though you can decide to buy a shield over armor if you want it to. Make sure, of course, anytime you get new equipment in Ys that you immediately equip it so that you have your best possible defense and attack. Enemies in the game are completely ruthless, and you will find yourself dead at a moment's notice. Any veteran of Ys will know that you're not going to be able to actually straight up attack enemies by hitting an attack button. Instead, you walk into the enemies to do damage. The skill of walking into an enemy just slightly to the left or right of them, or just to the north or south of them, not directly head on, is the best strategy to battle most enemies. But you'll always have to be careful because enemies will bunch up, enemies kind of spawn and come onto screen very quickly, and you'll have to be, of course, careful. If you walk directly in front of an enemy and try to face them one-on-one, face-to-face, you're more than likely gonna get hurt and pretty quickly killed, especially very early on. As you saw, only a single hit pretty much drained all of my health. Step number 1 is to earn enough money to buy ourselves a shield, which is going to cost us 700 gold, so that's why we had to come out into the field and earn a little bit of money and grind for a few moments. So just run around and kill some enemies. Once you have 700 gold and you've probably earned a little bit of experience, head back down into the village and head back to that armor shop. Here, now check out the shields and buy yourself the small shield, which will of course cost you 700 gold, so we have just a tiny smidge of gold left at this point. Be sure, of course, also to equip the shield, and once we've done so, now head to this little house over into the lower right and talk to Sarah. This is where we're going to be introduced to our main plot of the game, which is to collect the Books of Ys. After talking to Sarah and getting a little bit of story, we will get a crystal. Now, I did experience a little bit of glitching in the game overall when it came to items. I don't know if it was just because I missed an item or I didn't grab the right thing, but I usually let the entire sound effect after grabbing an item play out. I don't know why this happened, but on a couple of occasions, something ended up messing up, and I ended up getting completely stuck. After talking to Sarah twice here, we're now going to head back into the field. It's now time to already head to the second village of the game, and along the way, we're going to be fighting enemies to kind of grind and start gaining some experience. Usually if I run into any enemy in East, I usually try to kill them and get that little bit of experience, even if they end up being really weak creatures. Now, with the increased defense that we have from not only our armor, but now our shield, we can actually run into enemies, some of the ones at the very beginning, head on, and they won't be able to hurt us. You can really tell if you're strong enough for an area, or overpowered sometimes for an area, if you're able to face those enemies head on. Even if it's by mistake and you bounce them backwards, that is a good sign. Unlike some other East games where no matter what level you are or what defense you have, running into them headfirst will just end up causing you to get hurt. Not the case here, but still, always the best strategy is to attack them from that slightly off-center position. Continue heading north, and you can kind of hug the left side of the river here, the riverbank, working your way up, taking out any creatures, of course, that are going to get in your way for that experience, and eventually you'll come to a bridge. Get used to this trek. You'll be making the trek from the town, across the bridge, and to the second village quite often. Now, there are a lot of big differences in the East Famicom version. I mentioned that earlier. I mean, for example, you're much slower in this version. Your health regenerates really slowly. At any point, you can stop moving with Adol and you'll regenerate some health. You'll regenerate more when you have a healing ring in the game, but this is going to be key so that we can, of course, train for long periods of time and recover that health. So there will be some times where I just have to stand still for a minute or two just to recover the amount of health I currently can have. When you make it to these trees, head in there and you can walk between the trees to the right, and this will lead you to the next screen. Now we're in that second village, and here you can talk to all the townspeople. This is where things start to kind of mess up for me sometimes. You have to eventually talk to everyone in the village. We're going to start off by heading north and talking to Jeva here, who will mention that we have the crystal from Sarah and look for the books. But that's not all that we have to talk to here. We also need to go down here into this house, and we'll find out about the mayor keeping a secret, basically that the silver bell has been stolen, and you'll agree, of course, to help, and that the location of the thieves' hideout is up north into the mountains. After talking to Jeva as well as the mayor, we're now going to head north. When we come back later, we're going to have to talk to everyone in the village in order to kind of advance the story. It gets really tricky on trying to figure out which people you haven't talked to, and I'm not sure exactly which one will trigger the event, or if it's just kind of random which one ends up doing it. Like, if you talk to everybody, you'll be able to advance the story. Now, these enemies up here are a lot tougher than the ones we were just dealing with, so we have to go back to being very cautious as far as attacking them, mainly working on the sides of them. Of course, we're not going to attack these guys head on, as we'll just instantly be killed. You can save at any point, just like in other East games, so keep that in mind so that you can save, and in case you die, you'll be able to easily reload your game. Now, this is a good spot to start training. One thing that's really annoying in East is even though you may think you're strong enough to continue on in the game, however, you're not. You're not going to be strong enough in order to damage the enemies, and you're just going to bounce off. You'll hear like a tinging sound when you hit an enemy that you're not strong enough in order to do damage to. So we're going to train here for a little bit, and after gaining a few levels, we'll move on. After training for just a little bit and gaining a level, I'm going to head inside the temple, though I'm not going to stay here all too long. Head over to the left and you'll see a different colored statue, and this is the one that you can use to teleport inside of the main area. Now, this first whole open area has no enemies for you to deal with. There's a boss at the end of this area, but we're not going to be tackling him quite yet. In fact, we're actually going to upgrade our equipment before we even decide to go near that, so head around and work your way around a few rooms. This place you'll get used to because we're going to go through it quite a lot during the course of this run, and head up this far right side in order to get the chest, which contains the ruby. The ruby is worth 1,200 gold. As you can see right now, we have 843. What we're going to do is travel all the way back now to that first village and buy ourselves a new sword after selling the ruby. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just fast forward to when I get back there. Like I said, there's a lot of backtracking in this run, but I find getting a better sword now is a good opportunity during the course of the playthrough. Once back at the beginning, head over to the left side to Pim's once again and go to the sell option and sell the ruby that we have for that 1200 gold. Once you've done so, you can leave Pim and now head to the weapon shop and buy the second sword. It does actually make a good bit of difference as far as our attack goes, so it's really going to help us out. I will note also, during the course of this run, I will not be getting every item in the game. I'll be getting every main item, of course, that you'll need in order to advance the plot, and I will be getting the best set of equipment that you can possibly get in the game, but I will miss a thing or two from time to time. Trying to locate every item without, like, an efficient map can be a nightmare in Ys for the Famicom. At this point, we're going to head back to the shrine and do some more training outside of the shrine before we continue, earning ourselves a little bit more money so we can replenish what we just spent, but more importantly, gain that experience. Okay, so fast forward quite a bit here. I've trained some more, you can see I've leveled up a few times, and now it's time to tackle the first boss. I've re-entered the shrine, I've made sure I've replenished all of my health, which like I said is a nightmare because you have to stand there for a very long time in order to get that health back, and now it's time to finally start tackling the shrine a little bit. While Ys for the Famicom and all versions of Ys are relatively short games, a lot of your time playing is going to be that whole grinding aspect, so I'm doing my best to kind of exclude that, but there was quite a bit of training and I had to rest up on a few occasions. The maze is pretty straightforward, and since there are no enemies for us to contend with during this, it's kind of actually a little bit boring in order to work your way around. I really wish they would have made Adol run a little bit quicker, which is something they fixed in Ys 2 for Famicom, which was actually made by the same company. Now it's time though for the first boss fight. Wait for him to form, and then walk at the bottom of him a couple of times in order to do damage, and then immediately after walking in him only a few times, run away. Get away from the fire so it's unable to hit you when he explodes, wait for him to reform, and then walk in and finish him off. With the levels we've gained and our upgraded equipment, you shouldn't have any trouble being able to defeat him, but of course you're going to make sure you want to save before entering into that particular boss fight. Now, in the next area of the shrine here, the enemy is of course a lot tougher once again, so guess what it's a good idea to do? Yep, you guessed it, more grinding. But before we really do that, I will be moving around here a little bit and kind of showcasing this whole area, which, like all the areas in this game, can get very confusing very quickly. You'll eventually, going through these areas, get a little bit more used to the path that you have to take and which ways are leading where, but still, even playing the game many times, I'm still getting lost over and over again. After training for a little bit, head to the right side of this room. You're going to see a prison with a bunch of bars that you're not going to be able to open yet, but head south from there, and after going through a bunch of more winding pathways, you will come to a treasure chest. Inside the treasure chest is actually a key to other treasure chests. It's kind of a weird thing, but you need it. It's the treasure chest key, and it's going to allow you to open up the other chest within this floor. So this is a key item you want to grab. One thing that I really wish they would have done, the creators, is actually allow the chest to kind of open, give an open animation, so that once you've already grabbed an item from one, you don't get confused. Like if you're walking down another pathway later on, see a chest over to your right, and you're like, how do I get to that chest? And then you work your way around and realize, oh, that was a chest I got earlier. Once you have the chest in your possession, head over to the left side of this area. You'll eventually come to a doorway, and then from the doorway you want to head to the left and go down this doorway to a staircase. Remember kind of where this staircase is. It's a good way to kind of like mark yourself. You know where you are every time you see that. Once you pass the staircase, head along the bottom to the right side and enter into the doorway between these two statues. Go through another doorway and you're going to find the prison key. The prison key, of course, unlocks the prison that we just passed a little bit ago on our way to the treasure chest key. So Once you have the prison key, head out of there to the left side and work your way all the way back around until you come to the prison. Along the way, of course, you're going to want to take out more enemies so that you can gather some more experience along that whole way. Once you finally make it back to the prison, go inside and you'll run into Fina, who will, of course, be shocked that you have come to save her. She'll just stay there, but don't worry, she's actually saved, but we still have some more stuff to gather while we're here. Make your way back down the staircase on that far left side of the room and back down to this area here where we can gather the other treasure chests that we didn't grab quite yet. Pass that first door that we had entered and go into the second door located here. Once you go on through a couple of doors, always be very careful in very singular hallways. There's always usually an enemy waiting for you, so you sometimes want to move very cautiously, especially later on if you're fighting really tough enemies but you aren't ready for it yet. Here we grab ourselves the Mask of Eyes, which we will be using later on, but for now we're just gonna kind of continue on, trying to bait this enemy out of this little small hallway. Like I said, that's a really dangerous area to be battling enemies in East 1. From that enemy, head over to the right side. You're going to want to head up north here, and you'll find another chest that contains that silver bell that we were told was stolen. Now, unfortunately, comes the long, boring part of working our way back out of here. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead, because basically all I'm doing is backtracking through the same area you just saw, but like always, when you're working your way back, make sure that you kill as many enemies and try to get that extra experience. One small pit stop on our way out, though, is once you're back into that opening room where there was no monsters where we first kind of entered, we ended up finding that ruby earlier on, we're going to work our way around to a treasure chest here that contains the ring mail. Basically, it's an armor ring that we're going to be able to equip and help us out. So follow the path after exit the boss door that I'm taking here, and eventually you'll come to that ring mail. Be sure, like always, to equip it. It'll be in your ring section, and by doing so, you'll get a little bit of an increase in your stats. Then continue back the way normally to get out of here. After leaving the shrine and getting back to the town where we met with the mayor earlier, head back to the chief or the mayor, and he'll mention that, of course, we have gotten the bell. He'll give you a ring as a reward for doing so. Now, this ring is the power ring, which will greatly increase our strength. So it's better than the ring mail, but you can decide, of course, for yourself what you end up finding more beneficial. Now, from here, we're going to head back to the first town. Once we are back at the first village here, you can see that we have a good amount of money that we have built up while doing our training and going through the dungeon. I've gained a few levels and all, so it's time to visit the weapon shop and buy the most expensive sword I can buy from the shop. It's 5,000 gold, but the tower will actually be quite worth it. You'll notice my attack goes up to now 135, I'm level 15, and I'm in pretty good shape at this point. Of course, you can decide how you want to spend your money, whether you want another sword like I did, or if you rather have an increase in defense by buying the other armor or possible shield. Usually I try to go kind of suicidal in a lot of ways by giving myself tons of attack, but not a whole lot of defense, which can really come to bite you in the butt, especially during boss battles. So you have to pick and choose what you prefer and whatever your preferred playstyle is. Okay, so from here, it's now time we're going to go back to the shrine once again. But we're going to be heading now to the basement of the shrine and exploring and finding some more items. Getting the increased weapon power and strength that we have currently will definitely help us while doing so. So I'm going to fast forward just a bit till I get back to that shrine and back on that second floor. I know, it's very annoying having to go through the same areas over and over again, but unfortunately, that's just really the kind of way the game works. Now, making it back to the second floor, I just passed that staircase that I mentioned earlier to remember where that was located. I've also refilled my health. I had to stand around for a couple of minutes and watch it slowly tick upwards, but now that I have that full health again, it's time to travel through this area and make it to the far right side on this floor in order to make it to that next floor. Now, my defense is still rather low. I haven't really upgraded my armor and all, so I have to be very cautious while working my way through, but the increased attack power comes in such benefit that it's worth the risk. This is the third floor of the shrine. Now here, the enemies obviously are even more powerful than the ones we've been dealing with. If you're unable to do any damage to them at this point, you may want to go get better equipment, or more importantly, you may need to level a little bit before trying to explore this whole area. Now there is a few items here, and I end up missing stuff my first times through this place every single time I play it. I'm going to start off by going over here and grabbing myself the Ivory Key. From the Ivory Key, I'm going to start heading south. There is a lot of little branching paths, and like I said, this area gets so confusing so quickly. Ignore the statue that you're seeing glowing to my left here. Instead, we're going to continue down and along the pathway and go through this doorway here. Just like we've been doing in all the areas, take out any enemy that we see along that way. Here you're going to come to two more statues. Walk up to the one on the right side, you're going to be teleported to another area. The whole statue teleporting puzzle-like exploration is quite common when playing through the game. Here on the far right side, we're going to find the marble key, which of course is another essential item that we need. With the marble key, now go back to that previous statue, and you'll be back in the area with those two statues right next to one another. Ignore that other one on the left for now, and continue back over to the left. Like always, be very careful when there's an enemy in a very small corridor. You want to make sure they walk far enough off screen so you have enough time to get through those walkways. You can see here I can kind of bait the guy, wait for him to come out so that I can then move in for the attack. Now we're going to activate that statue we passed by just a little bit ago, and we're going to be in, of course, another part of this floor. Once you're through here, be very careful of the enemies. When I go down here, I'm going to be going to this left glowing statue, but there's a chest to my right. I come back for that later because I forgot it. Be sure to grab it now, though, so you don't have to worry about grabbing it later on. In here, just go in one door and out the other one to the opposite side, and then just keep working your way around this whole maze. After coming out here, you're going to come to a singular statue once again, so activate that, and once you appear, continue to the south and to the left, where you're going to come into contact with a few more statues. Immediately make contact with the first one so you can teleport, and then go right back into the same statue. Seems a little bit odd, but yes. And you'll be teleported to another area, and this is the area where we need it to go. The enemies right here in this area are very, very challenging, but they give good experience, so these are more enemies that you can use to level up a bit, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now that I have leveled up a bit, I have 200 total health, even though I'm only going to be able to use 160. Time to go straight north and enter the boss chamber. This next boss is a giant dragon-like snake, and your goal is to, of course, attack the very back of him, which can be difficult to do. The game slows down quite a bit. There's a lot of NES flicker during the course of this fight, so wait for your opportunities in order to run into him. Do not let him hit you if you have low defense like me. Take your best shots when you can in order to run into that back. If you level up like I did, it shouldn't be too challenging of a fight, and you'll be able to defeat him. I only found that you gotta just bare minimum of experience overall for killing bosses in this version of the game. The best benefit of killing the bosses is the amount of gold you end up getting, but more importantly, you do get your health back, so you don't have to kind of wait for it to regen. For defeating the boss, we get one of the Books of Ys. Unfortunately, guess what we get to do now? If you guessed running all the way back through the entire shrine to get back out of it, you'd be correct. It's quite annoying, but that's what we're going to have to do. So like always, we're going to take out enemies, and I will show the beginning of this backtrack specifically because of the statue puzzles that we had to deal with along the way. Go back through this room, that big hallway there, and enter that statue, and instead of going right back into the same statue that we did before, you're going to go to the statue on the left side, and then you're going to of course head to the right, ignoring that statue there, unless you want to go back to where that boss was located, and go to the statue over here. Now, this should be pretty familiar to you. Of course, you're working your way back, eventually finding the next statue, and continuing on your way. Like always, I have to be cautious to try to keep enemies from ganging up on me in those small little hallways. Once you go back through this statue, you'll be back here, which is a pretty good spot to be at, as this is what you're going to have to now just work your way back around the hallways and make it back up to the second floor. And at this point, you should have a good idea of how to get back through the dungeon. Once you have finally made it back to the second village here, head into Jeva's house, and here you'll be able to talk to her, and she'll be able to tell you about the Tree of Rhoda, which is what we're going to be going on our next kind of quest for. Our goal right now is to pretty much do a mini quest that will lead us to the mines, and then after the mines is actually the last area of the game. There's only 3 main areas: the shrine that we've pretty much completed, the mine area, and then Darm Tower, which is where a bulk of the game ends up taking place, which happens to be the final dungeon. Now, our first goal here is to get to a pair of teleporting statues. There's 4 statues that are together, and we can use them in order to teleport to another area, and this basically is kind of like a big fetch quest. We have to go one area to another, and then go somewhere else, and then go back, and so on and so forth. It's not really too complicated once you know the locations of where you need to go, but overall, when you make it to these different statues here, go to the lower right one. When you reappear, then go to the statue to the right side. Once you make it into this area here, you're going to want to walk a little bit north. You can see a bridge to your left, but we're not going to be going to that point. You have to walk all the way around here, though, in order to make it to the lake. After meeting up with Freya, we're now going to head back, go to the statue, and teleport. Once you're now on this little island with this tree, ignore the tree, just go right back into the statue, and now you're going to be back here. Now from here, head back to the first village. Once you're back at the first village, go to these wells and explore the first well, which you'll find the Staff of Sarana. Now that we have the staff, we have to work our way all the way back to Freya, the same way we just did, going to the teleporting statues and then working our way back to that lake. After talking to Freya, we will get ourselves the Flute of Light. Now with the Flute of Light, we have to find the correct trees. Start off by working your way back around the lake. This time we've gone around the lake at least 4 times up to this point. And go back to the statue in the lower right here. Just like before, we're going to just immediately go back into the statue, so now we're back at the hub of the 4 statues. Now once back here, take out some of the enemies and start working your way north, passing the entrance to the 2nd village after crossing back across this bridge. Now from here, start heading north. You'll have to head north quite a bit, but you'll see a tree kind of off place in the middle of another group of trees, and this will allow you to open up the area since we have the items, and then just walk straight up and kind of talk to the tree. After making contact with the tree, we now have the ability to get rid of the water, which is located above the set of trees, so work your way around, and you'll be able to dry up the lake. Now before we can enter inside the mine, we have to go get a cutscene that involves us finding out what's happened to Sarah since we've left. In order to trigger this, though, sometimes, I had to go back to the other village, the 2nd village, and kind of talk to everyone, and explore that village, go in and out of the buildings, and a whole bunch of times, making sure I've had every bit of dialogue I can before returning to the 1st village and going to Sarah's house in order to activate the scene, but we find out what happened to her. So, if you go back to the 1st town and you go to Sarah's house and you don't get a new cutscene, she's still there, come back to the 2nd village and talk to everyone here. After now making sure I've talked to everyone, I go back and we find out that unfortunately, Sarah has been killed. Sarah also, though, left us before she died the Book of Ys that she had. Now, since we also have a good amount of money built up, it's time to go to the armor shop and we can buy the reflex armor, which does cost 5,000. We can also buy ourselves another shield. Here we can buy the large shield, which will be worth 6,000, so we're pretty much out of money again, but we were able to afford some pretty decent equipment, greatly increasing our overall defense. As you can see, I have it up to 120. I'm level 19 at this point, and actually there's only a couple more levels of experience I have to gain, as the max level in Ys 1 is actually 24. But even at max level, you can easily get your butt kicked by enemies. At that point, it really comes down to the equipment you have that will really end up saving you. Now it's time to head to the mines, and I'm gonna just warn you ahead of time, the mines are vastly confusing, much more so than the shrine, and honestly, in this version, and only really this version, I find them even more of a pain in the butt to deal with than Darm Tower. Yeah, even the final dungeon I don't find quite as annoying as the mines in this version of Ys. It's very difficult to see, it's very easy to get lost, and I end up running around aimlessly half the time. So I'm going to do my best to kind of show you where you're going to need to go. We have to visit it multiple times, we have to go through different floors. Start off though by going into the first cave entrance. You'll, once inside, see that we have kind of a light, a circle around Adol, and being able to explore the entire mines with only this amount of light becomes annoying quite quickly, as enemies can easily sneak up on you. From that mine entrance, just follow the path that I end up taking around at first. The mine is broken up into 2 parts though, the right and the left mine, so you have to go to the right mine first. And like I said, it's very easy to get lost. I apologize for any wrong ways I end up walking. You'll eventually come to some words carved into the wall, which will talk about the gate. For some reason, you cannot activate what we need to activate without finding that plaque of wood on the wall. Now you have to do the backtracking and head back to the first village. Once you're back at the first village, head left from the main gate and go all the way over here. Go to the gate that you see next, and then you'll pop out another area. Go to the gate to the right of that, you'll pop out of another gate. Now head to the gate to the far left here, skipping the first one and going to the one next to it on the very far left, and you'll end up here. Now, with that bit of dialogue taken care of, the left mine, the main mine that we have to explore, is now open. So, backtrack through the forest and head back to the mine entrance. When you make it back here, of course, you're going to want to go into the left cave now, and this is where the real fun begins. There's a lot of items to grab here. There's a lot of new enemies, of course, so you're going to be very cautious. A couple enemies can be difficult to see, especially like those see-through slime-like enemies. I won't be collecting every item here, though the ones I grab are going to be the ones, of course, the most important in order to advance the story along, so I do apologize, but once you play the mines for yourself, if you ever do, you'll truly know the horror of this area. Work your way around and go up here, and you're going to find yourself the silver armor. Now, I know we just bought armor recently, but this armor is obviously better. So you don't want to spend the money possible in order to just buy the silver armor and the silver shield. Just don't even worry about buying it. But the key is you must have all the silver equipment. If nothing else, you must have the silver equipment in order to beat the game. So keep that in mind, that no matter what, even if you save up the money or you end up finding it, you have to have it. Continue along this far left side. Eventually you're going to come to a cave door and you're going to come to a big open area. These are kind of a good spot to like mark where you are so you know what part of the mine you're currently at, though even with that, trust me, you're probably going to get lost. Immediately head down here and you'll find a heal potion. There's a few heal potions scattered throughout the game, and this is just one of them, and they do come in handy as obviously they're going to be able to heal you. Head over to the far left here, and you'll be able to walk through this door. Even though it kind of looks like a normal door, you'll be actually able to go through it like a little cove. And then just above that, though, is another actual door, which will take you to another area of the mine here. The enemies here are extremely difficult. As you can see, even with my increased attack power, even with the levels I have gained, remember I'm only a few levels away from max level in the game, these enemies take forever to kill, though they're going to grant us a lot of experience, so this is a good spot to gain those last few levels that you may need, so spend some time if you want to in order to gain that little bit of experience. Head through an opening on that far left. Like I said, it's so easy to get lost here, and we're going to head now over to the right side. These enemies aren't as bad as those ones I was just dealing with a second ago, and up here is another heal potion that you can grab if you need it or want it. Just to the right of the heal potion, go ahead and head down, and you're going to find another doorway which will lead to another one of these big rooms. This one's a little bit bigger than the one we were just in a few moments ago. Now, as you can see here, I can't even damage the enemies in this spot, so I have to be extremely cautious, even more so than I already was. However, while traveling through here, just work our way over to this right side and then start heading north a bit, trying to get my bearings at all times, trying to make sure that I don't end up missing the entrances that I need to go. This is a good game to kind of make your own map if you need to while playing through it. Just to the right of that enemy, you will find this chest that contains the much-needed Rhoda Seed. Okay, the Rhoda Seed is one of the hardest things to find in the game, but you need it in order to get the silver sword, because you're able to talk to the trees using it. So, from where we are now, we have to backtrack all the way through this dungeon, this cave, and head back over to about where the statues were. So I'm going to fast forward to when I finally get out of the mine, and I'm close to where the statues are. Okay, when you're back here, you want to cross this bridge. This is the bridge that normally takes us to those teleporting statues. But don't go over to the right to the teleporting statues yet. Instead, go across this bridge to the left side, where you're going to come across a giant tree. There's 2 giant trees. We've already seen the other one a couple of times through the whole teleporting puzzle, but you'll find the Rhoda tree. After speaking to the Rhoda tree, head back over to those teleporting statues. And to the one like always in the bottom right, and to the one just next to it, and then immediately enter the one that you come out of here, and this will take you back to that small little island that contains the other giant tree. Going here, you're gonna find the silver sword, the much needed silver sword, and of course we're going to equip it immediately. Like I said, you need all the silver equipment no matter what, so this isn't really a mini side quest or anything like that. It's actually a main part of the story. Now you may ask yourself, where's the silver shield? Well, we could have gotten the silver shield earlier on because it's all the way back at the shrine. Now, this is where I messed up. I should have grabbed it earlier, and it's not that one chest I mentioned to make sure to grab. It's actually at another small part, so I'm going to fast forward ahead just to show you where the location of the silver shield is. Remember this room with the 2 statues to the left, and we enter the one, and we eventually make it to that room with the carpet and the boss? Well, just to the right is the case that ends up holding the silver shield. Yep, it's that annoying, but that's where the location of the silver shield is. Okay, so after all that nightmare, we now have all of the silver equipment, so it's time to head back into the mines. From this point on, we have all the equipment that we need for this whole area. We can do damage, I think, to pretty much everything within here, just gaining a little bit of extra experience. And I do recommend maxing out your level. Get to level 24 before even facing the boss of the mine. Kind of odd, I know, since we're not even at the end of the game yet, but it's best to pretty much do that here, as it will help out, and you can't really even do damage to the boss of this whole mine area unless you're at least, I think, level 23. Now, unfortunately, you can't gain health in the main rooms here, but remember those walkway rooms where the light's all on here? You can gain health easily there, so wait here in order to regain your health, which will take a while, so let's fast forward. Now that I've gained all my health back, we're now entering that whole second part of the mine, which we've been here before, walking through this little doorway, and then going to the left through another little walkway, and then just north of that, through that next door, with really no enemies here to deal with in this room at least. Well, I'm a big fan, of course, of the Ys games, especially Ys 1. I played quite a lot. Playing this version and learning this version was such a completely different experience. It works on its own complete system. The maps are way different, some of the quest lines are way different, and overall the story has changed up a bit. Not completely, the story is mostly intact, but there is little pieces here and there that are different. So for people that have played Ys 1 a lot on other systems, you may want to check out the Famicom version, even as kind of a curiosity's sake, in order to try to play all those different versions of Ys, which I am determined at one day in my life to beat every version of Ys 1 that has ever come out. In this area where you saw that water at the bottom, that's kind of another good sign that you know you're in the right area. This giant room here is not only huge, but is one of the worst areas of this game, worst part of the mine, for sure. The enemies are very challenging here, and they're going to be able to drain our health really fast, and there's a lot of area to explore, and very, very, very easy. I consider it very easy to get lost. Before I continue on, though, I'm going to use this small area here with these enemies to grind a bit. From where we were, we're heading north just a bit, walking around the cave and to the top of this room and kind of working our way back around to the far right side. We have to get the Darm Key before we're able to even fight the boss and complete this area, so that's our next goal, is to find that, as we have gained some experience, we have leveled up at least one time. Like I said, I do recommend leveling up all the way, even though it is obviously a long grind to do so. It'll be worth your time to do it. Trying to find exactly where you're supposed to go, like I said, can be very, very difficult during the course of this whole area. So a good way to kind of get where I need to go is I kind of backtrack eventually to find the door here. From this door, I use that as, okay, good, I'm at that door, I know where I am, and then from there, it kind of resets where exactly I need to walk in order to continue on. Like always though, because I haven't maxed my level, I am going to take out some of the enemies here. Since I'm actually pretty close to a level, it may not seem like it, but because of how much experience I end up gaining from the enemies, I walk back and forth here just a tiny bit to get that level before we go and grab the Darm Key itself. But since I know exactly where I am from that door spot, this is a nice little area. These enemies aren't too bad to kind of deal with, and I can gain that last little bit of experience, kind of. Now, from their point on, we're going to head up here and walk around this riverbank here. This can be very hard to actually find, so work your way around slowly and you'll find a bridge. It nearly blends in with the water also being blue, so it's hard to see, but if you cross that bridge, you've done good. You're able to get to the area with the Darm Key, which is located right here. Finding that the very first time during my playthroughs of this particular version of the game was a nightmare. Okay, now head back just a bit, back to kind of where there's like weird crab-like creatures are that I've been leveling up against. We're going to now spend the time that we need in order to gain that next level. I'm not going to max myself out yet, even though, like I said, it is recommended that you do so, especially on your first time through the game. So I'm going to work my way back around just a bit, but once I get back over here, I'm going to grind out that last level, but then it'll finally be time to fight the boss of the mine and move on to that next area. On that left side where we fought those crabs earlier, if you go south from this area, you're going to come to another river. This is a different river than that one with the bridge earlier. But to the right, you'll find the entrance to the boss chamber. Don't go into this boss like I do with low health. That's a bad idea, and this boss is challenging as heck. Of course, your goal here is to watch out for the bats, wait for him to form, and then walk up close and just walk along the left or right side of him in order to do that damage to him. You can walk across his feet, you can walk across the left or right side, but of course do not walk down the straight center of this guy. Do it very quickly and immediately run away. If you run away at just the right time, you'll be able to avoid the bats themselves and you'll be able to continue the fight. This fight is very hard, and this is why it's recommended that you max out your level, plus have the equipment that you have and full health going into it. If you're lucky enough to beat him though, you'll be able finally to move on to the next area of the game after getting our next Book of Ys. With that new Book of Ys, we've completed the mines. It's time to get the heck out of here, so let's move ahead. Head all the way back to the second village and go to Jeva's house in order to read the Books of Ys that we've been gathering throughout the game. After reading all the books, making sure that we have full health, and like I said, you should be max level at this point, it's time to head to Darm Tower. Darm Tower is a massive, multi-floor dungeon that is extremely confusing, extremely hard to navigate, but you can see, so it's at least easier to get through than the mine, and once you know kind of the cryptic details of how to solve some of the puzzles inside of the Darm Tower, it is not nearly as bad as the mines. To get to Darm Tower, though, it's very easy. Just north of the second village where we just passed the shrine that we got quite acquainted with earlier on in the game. Walk across these mountain paths, you're going to go across some chains and stuff like that, but eventually you're going to make it to a cave entrance, which is the entrance to Darm Tower. There's no real special flashy intro to the tower or anything, it's just a very little dialogue. You're basically told, oh yeah, I told you we're coming. Okay, boom, Darm Tower, and that's kind of how we begin the final dungeon here. Like I said, this place can be very intimidating for sure. The enemies are going to be no pushover, as you're already expected to be maxed level at this point, though we will be getting better equipment as we travel through here, but even with that, we still need to make sure that we have the silver equipment, as that's what we're going to be using to fight the boss. Darm Tower has lots of different floors, and there are actually multiple different bosses and multiple different goals for us to achieve while traveling throughout Darm Tower. There's actually a total of 4 bosses, and one of the bosses you actually end up fighting twice. In this room here with all the treasure chests, grab the wing from the chest and grab the evil ring on the far right side. This will come into play later on, but for right now, don't do anything with it, as it will kill you instantly. And no, I'm not kidding, it will actually kill you instantly, but there is one spot in the tower that will be able to use it, and will be able to continue on because of it. After grabbing that initial ring, head back a little bit. From this room, we're going to head over to the right, watching out for these guys. Like always, we're attacking them from the side to try to prevent us from taking too much damage. As you can see, though, just from a few enemies here, though, I was able to gain that last bit of experience and gain that last level needed in order now to max out my character. These guys are very annoying. They don't move, but if you just move right, you'll be able to easily run into them. And since we are max level, there's no benefit to fighting any enemy from here on out. Our goal is just to complete the area, so you don't have to really worry about fighting enemies all too much. Just like with other areas, it can get a little bit confusing. I ended up going here where I didn't quite need to go here yet. In fact, I actually need to equip the Mask of Eyes in this hallway and use that to walk through this doorway, which will only appear if you use the Mask of Eyes, and you'll find this guy located up here. After that wonderful conversation, head back out and unequip the Mask of Eyes. This is why we had to grab that earlier on in the game, but of course we had no idea what it really did. The only problem with the Mask of Eyes is, yes, it does find a secret passageway, but it also makes all the enemies invisible, so only use it for seeing that one particular walkway, but that's important, so we had to do that. From there, now head back to where I was heading. There's of course a lot of enemies in these little small hallways that are going to try to gang up on you, but we're going to try to just push through and continue along our way. Interestingly enough, our goal at this point is to continue around, and eventually we're going to actually get thrown in a prison cell. So in order to kind of activate that whole scene, keep moving along the main path, and when you make it here, we're going to head down to the right side here and head north. Once you enter into this room, everything will flash for a second, and all of a sudden you're in a prison cell. You're going to be missing some of your equipment, which is quite annoying, and you're going to meet Luda over on the left side here. Once you're done with the conversation, it's time to try to break out of the cell. Wander around the cell for just a minute. I found the best way to activate it is just head up to the north wall and walk across the north part of the room. As you make it to that right side, you'll be able to escape as the wall gets busted down. Now you're going to end up getting an idol, which is an important item that we need. Once you leave the prison though, we don't have our equipment, so we have to be very, very cautious until we're able to get the equipment back. Leave the prison and head back up to the far left side. You're going to be in this room over here. Now watch out for all the enemies here, because of course we're really not going to be able to do too much. Now you can still kill them, because thankfully our default attack is still pretty powerful even without having our equipment actually with us. So thankfully we're not going to die instantly if these enemies are actually able to hit us. So that's another reason to be maxed out level as soon as you make it into this whole area. Once you're back here though, once again equip the Mask of Eyes so that you can see that door opening, and then go to the guy and you'll end up giving him that idol that we just got a few moments ago. In exchange for giving the old man the idol, you're going to get yourself the blue necklace. Now, once you have that, head back out. And of course, you're going to want to make sure that you de-equip the Mask of Eyes as soon as possible so that you can actually see where you're going. Unfortunately, though, you have to have it equipped long enough so you can actually make it through the hallway. Now, you do have some of your older equipment, so you can equip that to help you, but like I said, I was still able to do pretty good amounts of damage even without having any equipment. You pretty much, I think, only lose what you have equipped at the time, but I could be wrong about that. You may automatically lose the best equipment that you have, so you may want to test that out in your playthrough. Equip the worst equipment you have before trying to enter that one door before you go into the prison. Since we have the necklace, when we enter that room that we did a few moments ago where their statues immediately made the screen flash and sent us to the prison, they won't be able to do that now. The monsters in that part won't be able to affect us, so we'll be able to actually continue on in the Darm Tower. It doesn't really make a lot of sense in this version why that even happens, because it's just the same normal monsters we dealt with in that Mask of Eyes hallway earlier on, but that's just the way the game goes. The farther you make it into Darm Tower, of course, the more powerful and different the creatures are going to be, so be on your toes and be ready to face off with some new threats. Thankfully, we don't need the experience, so we're good on that. On the far right here, you're going to come and find the silver sword. You basically have to maneuver around and track all the equipment down that you lost, all that silver equipment. So I'm pretty sure it's the silver equipment no matter what that ends up getting stolen, because if you lost your other equipment, you'd still be able to beat the game. You need the silver equipment though to beat the game, so it would make sense for the game to steal that over anything else. Head up here and you're going to run into Dogi, who does look a bit different. Normally Dogi is portrayed with blue hair, as he is in every other game, but this version, they just copied Adol. He actually kind of looks almost identical to Adol in a lot of ways, but that's Dogi over there on that far left side, who helped us out a little bit ago in the prison area. Now, I end up heading back up north. We actually don't want to go this way. I ended up making a mistake there, so you actually want to go back right in this room after meeting up with Dogi and go through these set of doors and head up this staircase and go through this room up here. Now here is another one of these rooms. It's a pretty lengthy, long room. You're walking through a lot of long hallways here sometimes, but going now this way to the right, you don't want to go to the left yet. Heading to the right will lead us to another long room that will take us to another treasure chest. This is where having any kind of increase in speed would have really helped the game along, I feel. Once you do make it all the way up here, walk straight up north. There's a few enemies in this room, but there's a chest in the middle. Just go to the chest and you're going to find yourself the silver shield and you can re-equip that. But once you do, all the enemies in the room will come to life. Just kind of walk away from them and head back south. Now once you're back here, head back down that staircase that we took in order to get up there, and now head over to the left side of the room that we had ignored just a little bit ago, and you're going to come to a boss door. It's time to take on the first of the bosses inside the Darm Tower, which happens to be the giant mantis. Wait for him to kind of attack, and when you get the opening, run up and walk across his legs really fast. You have a very small window sometimes, so you have to pick and choose when you want to decide to make it. If you're going to commit to go in and actually attack the mantis, do so. Don't kind of go in a little bit and then kind of stall for a second. You're just going to end up getting hit by one of his giant blades. It's a pretty easy boss fight as long as you've found at least some of your equipment back, so you have the silver sword and such, and you're of course maxed out level. But you do have to be very cautious. Once doing so though, go through the door and you'll find yourself a Book of Ys on the left side, and on the right side you're going to find the hammer, both of course essential items that we need to locate. Now with both of those items in our possession, head back south through the boss chamber that we just were in, and now we're going to head back over to the right side. Now, I know we were just over here, this is where we got the shield, and we're going to be going past the entrance where we got that shield. The reason why I recommend it coming in here and grabbing the shield is, of course, for that extra bit of defense that we could use during the course of that mantis battle. Past the hallway that we took in order to get that silver shield, and keep working your way over to the right side. Like seemingly all the rooms at this point in the tower, you're going to have multiple different pathways to take, and we're going to start off by heading south here. Make sure that you equip the hammer and then attack this column with the hammer. You must attack that column until it breaks using the hammer, and then you'll be able to enter this hallway here. If you don't do so, you're going to end up taking damage the entire time that you're in this hallway. One of those weird things about the game, and it works better in other versions of Ys where they kind of explain it a bit better of what you're supposed to be doing and why you're doing that, but there you go. You just have to hit that one column with the hammer. That's why we had to go grab it, and you're able to safely walk through that very long hallway. Now we're going to be in the first of kind of the mirror chambers. This is a series, of course, mirror-like mazes. But we're going to just be heading around, watching out for these enemies, and trying to bait them so we don't have to face them one-on-one, because even with our max level, they can still do a good amount of damage. You're then going to be in the next room, which has even more mirrors than the previous one. Work your way over to the left side and head up the staircase on the left and enter the door here. In the next room, head straight on south. It looks similar to some of the other hallways, and on the left side, you're going to come to another boss chamber. Now, this giant boss likes to bounce around the room and fire fireballs in a consistent circular pattern. Because of this, you can kind of get the jump on him and be able to get close to him when the projectiles are going to be coming out away from you, wherever you're standing. Usually I wait for that right opportunity when they're going to be giving me as much time as possible to attack him before the projectiles start coming my way. This is still a very challenging battle, much harder than the mantis, and you'll probably not be able to do a whole lot of damage to this guy, so you have to be very cautious of when you decide to actually move in and do the attacks. Now, sometimes you're not going to have that option because he's going to jump right on top of you, but like always, you've made sure, of course, to save prior to doing this fight, but once it's taken care of, thankfully, we do get all our health back, so no matter what you lost, you'll be able to gain all that back before continuing on. Just above, you're going to find the rod in the chest on the left, and on the right side, another one of the Books of Ys. From that boss chamber, head back around and now go to the right side of this room here, and once again you're going to come to another door. In this room here, work your way over, down to the very bottom, then up, and of course you've already seen probably that chest on that little bit of left side, so of course enter into this small corridor and open up the chest that contains the battle armor, which is of course better than the silver armor and the best armor in the entire game. But of course, keep in mind we're not going to be able to use that armor during the final boss fight of the game, as we have to use the silver equipment, so just enjoy it while you have it. In the next room, this is very annoying. These guys seemingly endlessly spawn because they spawn just south of where they enter into the small little corridor, so I always end up taking a bunch of hits. In fact, I've sometimes had my entire health bar drain completely from that one hallway just because of the badly programmed enemies throughout it that always just seem to come endlessly, so take out a couple and then just rush through it in order to try to get through. Next up, you'll once again have that same kind of choice we've been dealing with in rooms, the left and right side choices. Go through the right side here. You're going to have a bunch of more enemies and small little tight corridors, but head south, just to the right, head north. Here, you'll be able to bust through the wall, and doing so, you're going to find the battle shield. The battle shield, of course, once again, is the best shield in the game. We actually have maxed out defense at 255, but we're not going to be able to use this forever, but it definitely comes in handy, at least while we have it for now. With the battle shield in our possession, head back through the previous couple of hallways and back to the room here. Just like we've kind of been doing, exploring one side of a room, well, guess what? We're going to now go over and explore that left side of this room now. Walk through the little hallway, up another staircase, and through the door at the top, and then continue into the next room. You've probably seen a pattern of kind of like repeating style rooms. At least the design of the rooms are very similar to one another throughout this whole entire tower. Over here, walk through the small narrow opening, and you're going to find the flame sword. This, of course, is the best sword in the game, so now we have the best attack and the best defense possible in Ys 1 for Famicom, at a total of 255 attack and 255 defense. That's all that we need, though, from this corridor, so work your way on back through a few rooms. Unfortunately, we do have to go back through this hallway, but with that increased defense that we now have, we can just walk right through these guys. They can still damage you, but they're only going to do 1 damage total to you each time they hit you, so they're a breeze, and you can just kind of plow your way through this time around. It's not really scary anymore. At this point, we have to backtrack quite a bit, so keep backtracking until after you walk through the hallway, that evil hallway that we had to destroy the column before it. Now, once back here, instead of going to the left side, which we had originally taken, and we had gone south to destroy the column and through that hallway, head straight north here and walk your way through a series of little small corridors, and there's enemies during this part, and you'll come to a guy on the far left. For a reward for finding the book, he will give you the blue amulet, another important item that we need to find. Okay, now we have to once again do some more backtracking, so head back through the evil hallway, head back through the first 2 mirror rooms, and go back to that evil walkway that used to be really scary with all the enemies that gang up on you. Go back to that point. Okay, once back here, head south. You're going to see one of those big scary doors, usually a boss door, but that's not the case here. When you get to the door, equip the evil ring and the blue necklace. Once you equip the evil ring, it will start killing you. But if you're very quick, walk through the door so it won't kill you, and then you'll be able to cross this walkway over to the opposite side. Keep everything equipped for right now and work your way around in order to find the girl on the left side here. Now, since we are done with the evil ring, the blue necklace helped us out, that's why we needed it. Unequip the evil ring. Just go back to the power ring or the defense ring or whatever ring you prefer to use throughout your run of Ys. Now, once you are done with that area, head up north and head through here, back through the previous door. Now, once back here, I end up going to the right. You're not supposed to go there. You actually want to head to the left side. Heading left here will eventually lead us to the actual mirror maze itself. We're actually slowly nearing the end of the Darm Tower. We're not quite there yet, but we're definitely making good progress throughout here. Ignore the walkway up north, that small little corridor, and keep heading over to the far right side. Now here will take us to the mirror maze, and thus the mirror maze begins. One of the more frustrating parts of the Darm Tower, of course. That pretty much goes for any kind of maze like this. Go through this first mirror, and then you're going to head to the right side and go through this little corridor and enter the mirror here. Once you pop out, just back away from the mirror and then go right back into the same mirror you came from, and you're going to be at the next boss fight. Yep, immediately into the boss fight. Run away from the boss until he opens up and starts flying around the room, and this is how you're able to actually run and attack him. However, after only a few seconds, he'll start to go back to kind of the center of the room, or center area, and kind of reform. Once he starts doing this, run away from him. Get the heck away. He can do a ton of damage and pretty much kill you in just a few hits or a few moments if you let him. He chases you around the room as well, so getting used to what you need to in order to be able to run away, as you'll have to pretty much bait him. Running along the bottom wall opposite of wherever he is a good strategy, and then running all the way over to the right or left, and then up the left or right walls to the ceiling, and hopefully by then he will have stopped moving. So you can see here I move across the right wall south and then down across the left until he ends up breaking apart, giving me the opportunity to start doing damage again. It can be difficult. Sometimes you may have to backtrack like I just did there and go back up the wall because I didn't cut it quite enough so that I would be able to avoid him. He would have ended up running into me. So keep an eye out. He's so massive and the hit detection is far from perfect here. As you can see, he was able to just barely clip me, but thankfully I'm able to hang on and defeat the boss. We now have only one more boss left in the game, the final boss, who we actually have to battle twice. After defeating the boss, you get a pointless amount of gold, as of course we have nothing to spend it on at this point in the game. However, it's time immediately for the boss fight against Darkfact. Unlike every other version of Ys, where Darkfact is the final boss and you only fight him one time, this game you gotta fight him twice. The battle is almost identical, but he is definitely harder the second time around. You may be asking, of course, also, why don't I have the silver armor? I'm missing the silver armor. Don't worry, I do go get the silver armor before I fight him the second time. The only things that you must have for this fight is the silver sword and the silver shield you can have to help you out, but you need the silver sword or else you can't do damage. The silver armor and the silver shield only help with your defense during the course of this fight against Darkfact, so keep that in mind. You don't need it, it's just recommended. But I will be grabbing the silver armor between this fight and the actual final confrontation. Darkfact's final boss fight in the other versions of Ys is one of my favorite fights. He bounces around the room. He's going to be firing a whole bunch of projectiles constantly that come raining like meteors. When they crash into the platform you're on, they'll explode into a spread shot of fire, so it can be a little bit difficult to dodge them, and having the full silver set of armor will help you out a little bit more, but for the most part this fight is rather simple. You can either hug the left or right side, move up and down when he does, and you'll be able to run into him doing enough damage to take him out pretty quickly. Since this isn't the final boss fight of the game, it's pretty good that at least it's not too challenging, but it sets you up. You kind of know now what to expect in that final fight. Every other game of Ys would end at this point, but the game's not over yet. After we hear some eerie laughter, we have the Mirror of Fact from defeating Darkfact, and it's now time to start heading back. And along the way, we will be finding that silver armor I didn't pick up from before. Getting back through the mirror maze is just as a pain in the butt as it is going for the first time around. Once you're back through it though, and you're starting to backtrack a little bit, I'm going to fast forward just a bit, all the way back to that second room where we saw the mirrors earlier on. I'll show you what I mean as I'll go through the room right before it as well. You'll have to go back through several rooms, including that once disastrous hallway, and you'll come back here with those weird multi-armed like Medusa snake-like creatures, and the room filled with the mirrors, but we hadn't gone through any of the mirrors on our previous trips here. Instead of going to the right side and leaving this area, we're going to instead head through this doorway south. Heading down south through here will eventually lead us to a mirror. Skip that mirror and head to the left side, going through a couple of hallways and going to the mirror on this side. Now once over here, head north just a tiny bit to another mirror. Once you appear from that mirror, head over to the right side and head north again. Here you're going to have two mirrors. Go to the one on the left side. Immediately go back to the same mirror you entered from in that area, and you'll be here. Go up to the top here and activate this switch, and all of a sudden you'll see some things starting to open up and fall apart. After that scene is over with, head back south as you'll now be in a slightly different area. Once in this area, which you I think could have come to earlier, this is leading us to not only where we needed to go, but also the location of the silver armor. That's why I just ended up skipping the silver armor right away, but I think you can come here earlier on if you follow the pathway, opening up the floor and all. Go through the mirrors that I do, and you will come finally to the chest that contains that silver armor. Make sure that you equip it so you'll have a complete set of silver armor, or go ahead and equip all the best equipment in the game if you want to now, just for that last little bit before we make the Darkfact. But of course, be sure to equip the silver stuff before you initiate that final conflict. From that mirror, head back down, and we're going to head around and go back through this one here. Now head to the mirror on the right side. Head up through another mirror. I know, lots of mirrors, right? And then go back through the same mirror that you entered from. It gets really confusing. That whole gimmick of having to go into the same mirror you come from really confused me while I was trying to map out my way through here. Once here, you'll see that chest that had that silver armor earlier on that we just had gotten, but now we're going to be going around and up north through another mirror straight up. This will take you outside of the tower, so you know you're in the right spot, and now you're going to climb all the way up this very long walkway and enter the next door at the top. Before entering here, though, this is where you're going to make sure you equip everything silver, because it's final boss time. This fight is identical in some ways to the previous one, but this time around, not only do you have the meteors, he moves a little bit faster, I think, but more importantly, he drops little bombs everywhere. These little bombs are going to get quite annoying, so be very cautious when you're running into them, as you accidentally can run into the mines. This is why it's essential to have all the silver equipment, but still, overall, it's a pretty easy fight for being the final fight in this game, as the Famicom version is overall so challenging. But then, you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Ys on the Famicom. So there you have Ys on the Famicom. I have to say, this is my least favorite version of Ys 1 that I've personally played, but there's a lot of versions of Ys 1 out there, as it was pretty much released on every console at the time, and it's still being re-released sometimes today. We've seen releases for the Nintendo DS and PC releases of Ys Book 1 and 2, so Ys is very much still alive, and that's a great thing. I love this series so much, so I'm always looking forward to trying out other versions of Ys, even though there's the same game usually. But overall, the Ys series is definitely one of my favorites ever. And I'm not a huge fan of this version overall because of how slow it is, some of the changes, and the maps, but that may be just because I'm experiencing the game now and I'm so used to other versions of Ys, but I do have to applaud them for being able to take Ys, especially Ys 2 and 3 as they did later on, and put them over, and I think they did a much better job with Ys 2 and 3 overall than they did with the original Ys. I feel like Ys 2 is much more faithful to the original game than this one was, but it's still a cool thing to see these games even on the Famicom. Unfortunately, of course, they never made it to North America, but with great fan translations like the one I played through here, you can enjoy the games for yourself, so that's of course really cool. It'll just have to be one of those things where everyone probably has their own personal favorite version of the original Ys, with mine of course being the Ys Book 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx, with still my favorite version of Ys 3 always being the Super Nintendo version, just because it was the one that I first played and I have the most nostalgia for, even though other versions of it, including the TurboGrafx CD version, are far superior versions of Ys 3. And considering this is the same developer that brought us Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I have to say at least I like Ys 1, 2, and 3 on Famicom better than that game, as I'm sure many people will. But when we see the presented by Victor Musical Industries Inc., that will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. Those things actually do help the video get seen by more people. Now, if you enjoyed this Play It Through, you may want to check out my old school Play It Through of Ys Book 1 and 2 for the TurboGrafx that I did many years ago, but people still enjoyed it this day. You can click the very first part of it. Yeah, it's in many parts, and you can do so by clicking right over there. I also want to give a huge special thank you to all the members of my Patreon. You guys are keeping this channel alive. Your monthly pledges allow this channel to keep going and to keep growing. And if you want to join them, all you gotta do is click the Patreon button down right below me. As little as $1 a month can keep this channel going. Anyway, thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.